Welcome to Podcast 83, a regular look at the news, stories, and trends related to Michigan's 83 counties from the Michigan Association of Counties.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Podcast 83, the podcast put on by the Michigan Association of Counties. Once again, we're joined today by James Johnson and Deena Bosworth from the MAC staff. James Johnson, whatever we're calling him this week. He goes by.
That's getting to be a constant struggle. You're gonna have to decide. It's either Jimmy or Jimmy.
Well, I call him Jimmy around the office, and then he changes his title on his Zoom there, so it kind of throws me off.
Hey, it's always been there, all right. So
well, let's talk a little bit about what happened in the legislature last week, a little bit the current week that we're in right now. Deena, we've had a little bit of a development on the roads package, the House Republican road package. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Pretty exciting. It's about a $3 billion road package with almost half of it, not quite, but almost half of it going just to the county road system. So we're pretty encouraged by the amount of effort that's been put in by all stakeholders, by the legislature to get these bills, this whole package put together. I know we've been talking about a road funding package for, gosh, how long now, Steve?
Well,
10 years since the last big road funding package, right? I think that was
well,
like in
the ones that
2015.
the ones that affected counties significantly. The governor bonded a few years ago for her road package, which I think was 5 years ago, but that all went to state. Most of it went to state roads, not county roads.
Yeah,
So prior to that, it would have been the gas tax increase, from 17 maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason I thought it was 15, 16, but
It might
maybe,
have
yeah,
been.
you're probably right. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, huge talk in Lansing about an influx of dollars into the local road system. So the vast majority of the money that they're talking about right now is going to county roads and then to city roads and lastly to MDOT. The bills, this great big bill package that was up in House Transportation Committee this week, like I said, it's about a $3 billion package. They've carved out a little bit of money for bridges. I want to say a little, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, but money for bridges, money for county road systems, money for city road systems, and then some money for actually township roads too, so that they don't necessarily have to come up with a big match on the design part of the projects where county roads are where the county is responsible for the roads. Now I say this, I mean, you've got our support on it, although we're slightly concerned about what some of this decrease in general fund will mean later down the road. But again, you can't really look a gift horse in the mouth with your $1.4 billion additional every year going into the county road system. So there was that. MAC is supportive, MML is supportive, County Road Association supportive. You've got some business groups that are not really loving the change from the Michigan business tax to the corporate income tax. And usually those larger entities would be a huge wrench, in the process and kind of gum up the works. But that didn't happen today. That didn't happen in House Transportation Committee where those bills passed out. Now they're on the House floor, and we do expect the House to take swift action and vote them over into the Senate before they break for spring break.
Yeah, so that's it's good to see some movement on that. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm putting you on the spot because we didn't talk about this, but didn't you send me something that there's a fair amount of counties that do put general fund dollars towards roads too?
Yeah, not as many as you would think. I mean, yes,
Okay.
they do, and some have millages, but it's not as much general fund dollars from counties that go into the road system, except for clearly our 7 road departments, which I'm sure are going to have, some of their general fund helping to support those departments.
Yeah. So that kind of tracks with where I thought it would be. There were some, but not a ton that actually did.
I might pull up that spreadsheet and pipe in later, but we'll see.
Okay. But to your point on the township side, there is a match that townships are required to do for planning in their areas, and is that where you see a lot of millages coming?
There's always a match that townships are required. The local road, the county road agencies, whether it's a county road department or a road commission, require the townships to help contribute toward the maintenance of their roads. And you'll see lots and lots of millages the townships have to help support their road system. And so we require, a match for a lot of those issues. There goes my screen again. Derek's going to kill me. Match for those systems, but just part of this neighborhood road fund that is being created in this package, there is going to be a grant process where counties will be able to access those dollars without any match on our part. So for design and engineering, which we usually have to put up the money ahead of time, we're not going to have to do that when we apply for these grants. So in that, the monies and that those local road neighborhood road fund is the portion that the townships are not going to have to provide a match for. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't have to provide a match for other road projects, but just this section of money where no one has to put up match money, then the townships don't have to put it up either.
Interesting. So yeah, like you said, it's in initial stages of the process, passed out of committee. Now we're looking for a House vote, still waiting on the governor's proposed plan on her road funding plan, and kind of we'll see how everything meshes together after that, probably post spring break at this point, maybe even post our before we even see anything like that. But maybe we see something before then. Moving on, Jimmy, talk to us a little bit about the juvenile transport bills. We talked, I think, a little bit last week. We put it in our legislative update. Where are we at on those bills?
So yeah, the juvenile transport bill, that is House Bill 4018, which was introduced by Representative Mike Mueller. That bill has recently just passed out of the House. I believe it was 74-4 it passed out of the House. So this bill, I know we've talked about it in the past, but this would apply to a juvenile over the age of 16. If he was to be arrested with an adult that's under the age of 25, they would then be able to be transported at the same time. Now, if once they get to the proper facility, then they would be they'd be separated pretty quickly. This was Michigan Sheriff's Association, one of their priorities. A lot of us know that the sheriff's departments are being spread thin, so this is just a more efficient way and a cost-cutting way that they'll be able to effectively transport these people without having to stretch the police force thin. So, we are glad to see that go through, and we're going to be watching that pretty closely as it goes through the Senate.
Yeah, it kind of eases things for sheriffs a little bit in some of those
Absolutely
circumstances. Good to hear. Now, changing speeds a little bit on something we haven't talked much about, but have spent many years talking about. And Deena, you probably remember this prior to Jimmy being here with some other staff that we worked on. Trial Court Funding Commission recommendations came out in 2017 on how courts are to be funded, how those fees are to be distributed. Should there be fees being charged by the judges for those that are using the court system? We had back then was Commissioner Sarah Leitner, who was our representative on that commission, I believe, along with County Administrator Mike Bosonic from Monroe County, and they worked on these recommendations for many years. They introduced the bills in 2019. COVID hits, things fall apart. Since then, we've been kicking the can down the road, right? We're trying to get these fees figured out, but can't seem to get a legislative fix to do that. So we've had to continue to ask for these fees to be allowable to be charged for many years. Sunset date gets kicked. Once again, last year we were able to get the sunset date pushed out to the end of 2026. But at the time they passed legislation to kind of really dig into this with scale. Jimmy, where are we at with that whole process that started back prior to you probably even graduating college at this point or something? It took 2000.
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
I knew he was born. I just said he wouldn't practice.
Easy.
Yeah.
That's a compliment. Deena
Right.
and
Hey, I appreciate it. All right. So
Deena and I were talking about stuff in 2015. He was probably in middle school or something like that.
Oh, could you just not make me feel so old, please, Steve?
But to trial, where are we at with trial court funding right now? Can you talk a little bit about some of the things they're working on and timelines and that sort of thing?
absolutely. So as of right now, they're working under, it is Public Act 47 of 2024. So speaking of Rep. Leitner, this was one of her bills that she had passed. Currently, the way that this works is they did push back the sunset for the courts to be able to impose those costs. And that was from May 1, 2024 to now December 31st of 2026. Now, additionally, with that bill, they created the Trial Court Funding Act of 2024, which is requiring the Supreme Court Administrative Office, under the direction and supervision of the Supreme Court, to analyze and determine these certain costs and revenues that trial courts are working on. So that's sunset right now. And for them to have that report completed and presented to everyone is going to be May 1, 2026. So as they've started working on this, they've broken up into 4 different groups to really try and, work on this from different angles. So that would be operational cost funding model implementation team, a funding distribution implementation team, a uniform assessments and indigency determination implementation team, and then a collection system implementation team. Now, we do get updates on these, so I'll touch on what I think are going to be the ones that we're probably going to be the most interested in as of right now. Coming from the implementation of the operational cost funding model. Just to let people know what this does, this team is charged with developing the financial plan for the Michigan trial courts under the new trial court funding model. So this means developing a system for determining and recommending the appropriate funding for each individual trial court. Now, one of the things that they're really working on right now is going to be the maintenance of effort payments. And that is something that's very important to us. So we're going to be watching that very closely. Sounds like the main discussion that they're having with regard to maintenance of efforts is if it should be static or if it should be adjusted. And if it's going to be adjusted, what exactly are those metrics to find out what's the appropriate way to adjust it? As of right now, we haven't heard a whole lot. They're saying that by the end of April, they're going to be submitting their report on that to give us what those recommendations are. So really looking forward to seeing how they're going to be making that determination. Is it going to be static? Is it going to be adjusted? We're going to be watching that aspect very, very closely. The second part would be through the funding distribution implementation team. Now, this group is going to be charged with recommending a plan to establish the trial court fund, and that's going to be designed to centralize all the generated revenue from the trial courts. Their most recent update was that they currently held a vote on which functions currently receive money from court assessments and what should be considered court operations and therefore continue to receive money from court assessments via the trial court fund. They were able to reach a consensus, it says, on 2/3 of the votes. Now, again, we don't know exactly what those are. We're basically getting kind of like a high level, this is what we're discussing. So their next meeting that they're going to be having is actually this week on the 19th, and they're going to be discussing what they had agreed on and those 2 other issues that they haven't been able to apparently figure out. They're going to be bringing that together for a more broad discussion with the entire group. So these are the things, that we're going to be watching very closely because we want to make sure that the funding distribution is going to be adequate for our counties, and then as well just making sure that the maintenance of effort is going to be appropriate as well. So these are things, we're watching very closely. There's a lot moving with this. So, stay tuned. I'm sure we're going to have, some more updates as this continues going.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it sounds like a little refresher on trial court funding. Like, hey, this happened a while ago. These were great recommendations. People have moved on to different areas. Let's refresh the conversation. Kind of some of the same things that the Trial Court Funding Commission looked at back, I think it was 17, 18. So good to know. We'll keep our eye on that. And obviously, as legislation's introduced, if and when, we'll keep people updated. And then finally, just wanted to talk a little bit our conference coming up. Registration is open, will be open for the next 10 days until March 28th. The conference is April 7 through 9 here in Lansing, Michigan. You can register at micounties.org. A little different setup this year than we've done in the past. Everyone is going to be in one main pod. We're going to stay in one location. We're going to be at the Doubletree Hotel, the former Radisson here in Lansing. We're not going to be going back and forth between the Lansing Center. So everyone will kind of stay together through all the different presentations. And we'll kind of see how that change kind goes. Registration seems to be very strong, so we look forward to seeing many folks there. Again, you can register at micounties.org. Deena, Jimmy, anything else you want to update before we close things out?
I don't think so.
Deena?
Nope. We'll weigh in next week.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Podcast 83.